NIL transfer portal, have they brought more parity to college football? Yay or nay? What say you, Caleb Calhoun?
So I'm going to bring up the context. This has been a talk after the first 2 weeks because Alabama looks down. The SEC in general looks down. Clemson lost. I mean, the 4 teams that have won the last 8 national titles all have a loss 2 weeks into the year, which is crazy, except for Georgia. 4 of the 5 teams that have won the last 8 national titles all have a loss. LSU, Alabama, Clemson. 3 of the 4. Okay. So there's been a question on, is there more parity in college football? No. These 2 weeks were just an aberration. It's not something you typically expect. It's not part of a trend. I'm going to tell you guys that if there's any trend, maybe there's a changing of the guard at who the teams at the top are. I don't believe that either, but it's possible. But there's not more parity. And you can track this. So the talent composite rankings, which looks at the transfer portal with recruiting, the Alabama right now is number 1 with 1,015 points. 3 years ago, before NIL or the transfer started, Georgia was number 1 at 990 points. So Alabama has even more talent now than teams generally had before the transfer portal. And there's a larger point gap between them and number 20, which is Florida State, than there was 3 years ago between Georgia and number 20, which at the time was laughably Stanford. So just on that alone, there's not more parity. We might see I think this is just one of those years where it's an aberration, where Alabama just happens to not have a quarterback. There's experience issues with some of the more talented teams. So this is the 2007 version of the college football playoff era.
Caleb, you're one of my favorite all-time guys to work with. You're so wrong. So incredibly wrong. And I'll give you one word.
Okay.
Prime time. Colorado was nothing last year. They have had 2 big wins, and they're probably going to be bowl eligible after, I think, having 3 wins over 3 years and 1 win last year. Tennessee has become relevant quicker than possible. I know that's not what you're talking about, parity, because Tennessee should always be good. But yes, it has brought more parity, because if dude X can't play, he can go to another school. Notre Dame is better this year because of bringing in Sam Hartman. They would not be in the discussion of a national title, which I don't think they should be, but they would not be in the discussion without bringing in that quarterback. Again, that's not parity, but it is, because everybody's level across the board. You can't keep – that's why Tennessee's quarterback situation is so special, and you guys are arguing whether or not Nico should play. Just be blessed that you have 2 guys with elite ability right now. But listen, if a quarterback can't find his way as a starter, he can go somewhere else and help a team. If another player can't find his way, he can go somewhere else and help a team. So, yes, I don't see how you can possibly say that there's not more parity when the talent, you would have to agree, right, is more spread out. Correct?
I thought it was more spread out, and I want to be honest with you guys. I was ready to come in this morning to say it was more spread out, and there was at least more parity among the Power 5 teams. But numbers don't lie. The composite talent rankings don't lie. The gap is larger right now than it was 4 years ago. If the transfer portal were to even out.
4 years ago, it was Alabama or Georgia. They are going to win the national title. Now it's Georgia.
I'm saying from the 247 Sports Composite, which scores the recruits coming out of high school, you would think with the transfer portal, the gap would be narrower. It's not. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. It's not. There's a larger gap between Alabama and number 20 and between Alabama and number 10 than there was last year. Alabama has more talent overall than they had the previous few years. They just don't have a quarterback. Now, you can maybe say a quarterback is the great neutralizer, and I will say maybe the quarterbacks are more spread out across the country right now, which neutralizes things a little bit better. But outside of quarterback, Alabama and Georgia are still head and shoulders above the rest of the country in talent.
You're talking about a guy who sent 2 kids to college based off covering college football recruiting. Okay. But I'm done with the rankings. And I meant to talk to you about this at some point off the air. I'm done. I think they are so absolutely manipulated based off this network or that network and who their biggest site is and who the biggest fan base is. I think that if you're Alabama and you pick up a guy, his ratings go up. I think if you're Tennessee and you pick up a guy, they don't. Because Josh Heupel doesn't care and doesn't try to manipulate those ratings, and neither does Nick Saban. But they know that they've got a 10,000 subscriber base, and I absolutely love what the guys at VolQuest are doing and Hubs. But I think that that's one of the biggest sites on 3. So do they get a boost? I think that very well could happen outside of their control. I'm not knocking any of those guys, but I think based off of whether you're Rivals or you're on 3 or whether you're 247, your rankings move based off how big your particular site is on that network. And I believe it's to the point that recruiting rankings, I think there's a vast void right now that somebody could step in and just throw out recruiting rankings, give evals, not give out stars, or maybe give out stars, and it have nothing to do with the individual teams. And there's a void out there that somebody could fill as far as rankings. So I am done with recruiting rankings. Done. I want to see you as a freshman. I want to hear about what, like Nico, for instance, I want to hear about what you've done when you've showed up on campus. Now, my sources are better at some schools like Tennessee and some others. I'm not going to mention the others, but I'm done. I'm done with recruiting rankings. I'm done with you have the number 1 class versus the number 5 class. I think if you're in the top 5, you're in a different level. If you're in the top 10, you're in a slightly lower level. And then you're probably middling in a medium sort of level. I'm done with recruiting rankings. There, I said it.
This is a bold statement from Dave, but Dave, I gotta be honest with you. When do you think this change happened? Because this talent composite ranking I'm bringing out to you, all but one team that won a national championship was in the top 5 in the talent composite ranking since 2015 when they started tracking this. And so,
no, top 5 is a different level. So if you're at top 5, then you're at a level in which you can now TCU would be the exception, and then Cincinnati would have been the exception that you can make a college football playoff and make a run for a national title. But top 5, okay, top 5 is one thing. Top 10, if you want to go 5 to 15, that's another that you need to have a special run, which is kind of where Tennessee is and what they did last year and what they might do this year. But as a whole, I don't think there's a big difference between 1 and 5. I think a lot of the reason is there's more people that play college football. I thought that would take a hit after the whole concussion thing, but that's gone away. And yeah, I don't see it. And with the transfer portal, again, if you're not playing, you're going someplace really, really good to play. I mean, when you've got Sam Hartman that goes from Wake to Notre Dame in 1 year, how can you tell me that doesn't bring more parity to college football?
Well, it's not bearing out anywhere but quarterback, which is why I said, and maybe where we can maybe come to an agreement here, would you maybe say, like I said, that maybe quarterback is the equalizer, where the quarterbacks are getting more spread out now because quarterbacks don't want to wait 2 years to become a starter like they used to. Quarterback Colorado would they be 0-2 without Shedeur Sanders? So I guess that's where I'm at.
Would they be 0-2? No, I think they would have found a way to be 1-1. But I see your point. Shedeur Sanders is pretty special and might end up winning the Heisman this year, as crazy as that sounds. But I think 2 positions, okay, quarterbacks, and I can look at a guy that's 330 pounds and can move at defensive tackle and tell you if he's pretty darn good. I mean, if you want to talk about those guys, yeah, I can point out, hey, he's good. You know, Tennessee.
My wife could point him out.
Yes. So I think it's those 2 positions that will keep the SEC at an elite level because most of those guys are from the Southeast. And quarterback,
the defensive
yes.
line, quarterbacks are from everywhere.
Right. No, I mean, specifically the big uglies, the defensive tackles, the war daddies, whatever you want to call them. I think those are the guys that still tilt it towards the SEC's favor. But you're right. Quarterbacks are everywhere. But those are the two positions I would look at that if things aren't going your way, you can go somewhere else and you can play. So, yes, I think the transfer portal has brought parity to college football. Not across the board. I'm not saying that Austin Peay is going to walk in and really have a chance against Tennessee. They didn't. But I think from the 1 to 20, yeah, I think there's some parity.
So do you think when the college football playoff goes to 12 teams next year, there's going to be one of those there's going to be 2 group of 5 champions get in because there's only going to be a power 4 next year. So throw those out. So it'll be 10 teams from like the power conferences get in. You're telling me you think that the worst team of those 10 will have a chance against the best team of those 10?
Yes.
No, not happening.
Okay, wait.
Giants,
Let me make
Patriots,
sure.
07 isn't happening.
You're talking 1 to 12. Okay, let me ask you this. Does the first 4 in the college football playoff will have a bye?
Mm-hmm.
So are you telling me 5 versus 12 is a non-matchup, that 5 is just going to dominate 12 every year? Because I don't believe that.
Well, I can't say that because I don't know who 12 is going to be and how they're going to seed. I don't know if they're going to be preferential treatment to conference champions. Put it this way. If 12 is one of those group of 5 teams that get in and they're playing 5, yeah, 5's dominating 12 every single time. You will never see 5 not beat 12 by 30.
Do we need the Hooker's rating scale? Yes, we do. That is right there on our message board. Give us a review.
High of 69.
Give us a review if you're on the Spotify, and we'd love to hear that.